ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So in this video I want to discuss my experience using Capti8 Aquaculture salt. But before I do that, if you want to help support the channel and pick up some SPS frags, then please visit reefbum.com. And with that, let's get into the video. So it's been about 2 months since I started using the Capti8 Aquaculture salt, and I wanted to provide my initial thoughts on what I have been seeing with my tanks and also some interesting tidbits about the salt itself. I had been using instant ocean salt for a number of years, and for the most part I was happy. My corals looked good and the salt was pretty cheap. I did have to supplement magnesium since freshly made batches of salt tested out at around 1270 parts per million for that element, but I never did test for calcium and alkalinity, so I can't comment on the consistency of those components. Another knock I had against instant ocean is that it mixed up really dirty. I had been told the residue was not harmful to any tank inhabitants, but I do wonder if it impacted the mixing pump I had in my saltwater mixing drum, since it did seize up on occasion despite regular maintenance. What I can say is that the Capti8 salt mixes up very clean. Okay, as for my corals, they had been looking good with instant ocean, but there were 3 browned out corals in my peninsula tank that started to color back up after I started using the Capti8 salt. I believe they had browned out due to a rise in phosphates, but that's just a theory of mine. I should also mention that I started to dose some Capti8 Aquaculture trace elements around the same time I started to use the salt. At this point, I'm still dialing in those traces based on some ICP testing I'm doing with Reef Lab, some more on that down the line. Anyway, here is what one of those 3 corals, a gorgeous BC Dayglow Millie, looked like before the brownout, and here it is after it browned out. Now, check it out a month later, and here it is 2 months later. The pink coloration is definitely coming back. This orange cap was another coral that had lost color, but today the orange is much more vibrant. This Paletta pink tip was the 3rd coral that had browned out, but today it's looking much more colorful. Did the Capti8 salt and traces make a difference? I can't definitively say that they did, but I have not made any other major changes to my systems during this time frame. Okay, so let's back up a bit here. Why did I make the switch to the new salt if I was pretty happy with what I had been using? Well, I was worried about some of the major issues that have occurred with certain mass-produced salts. Some inconsistencies in batches for those brands led to major tank issues for a number of reef keepers. Could this happen to instant ocean? I don't know. When I started to use the Capti8 salt, Chris Wood, who is the founder and sole owner of the company, told me I would not have to test for any elements when mixing up new batches of salt. He said it was extremely consistent batch to batch, and that was a huge plus for me. He explained the consistency is due to the way the salt is produced. There are 4 components, 2 are dry and 2 are liquids. The raw material source for these components are very pure, greater than 99%. As long as the end user measures these components accurately when mixing up a new batch of salt, the elements in the salt will be very consistent batch to batch. Thus, no need to measure stuff when making up a new batch of salt. This type of consistency batch to batch for other salt brands that use only dry components may be harder to achieve. Let's say another salt brand uses 10 different dry components for their mix. It is likely that the densities for some of these components will be different. Higher density components will gravitate towards the bottom during the mixing process at the factory. Thus, the blend will not be 100% homogeneous due to the different densities of the components. Hey, perhaps there is a way to overcome this mixing issue. Feel free to comment if you have any opposing viewpoints or insights into this topic. I know many of you have had great experiences and no issues with other salt brands, but I think it's very important and helpful for all of us to share our experiences and help educate one another. Until next time, be safe and be well. Later.